So migration was another operator that we had inside of OpenShift, and that operator helps us grab a virtual machine from outside of our cluster somewhere and stream all of its storage contents, its network definitions, and in some cases where live migration supported, the active memory contents into our cluster. Okay. The way that this technology works, which is built in from an entitlement perspective in your base OpenShift license from Red Hat. So this isn't a a la carte separate tool. But how this works is you create a plan for migration. You create connections for different providers. So we'll look at that first. We'll go to looking at the providers that are in the system. So this test environment has a virtual center endpoint that it's connected to. This is the vCenter 2023. And it also has a target of itself. So the target of itself is when you do a migration plan, you do a from and a to. The host one is built in and will be auto-populated for you. So if we want to add another virtual center cluster, we do create provider. And then from here, there's different sources. So I can stream from an OVA file where that makes sense. Instead of a running virtual machine environment, I can stream from a virtual center connection or as a source OpenStack, OpenShift virtualization in a second cluster, or Red Hat virtualization. Okay, we don't have other environments to define, so we're going to use the existing one here today. If we click into that one and look at its settings, we have the URL for the vCenter, and in OpenShift, secret is and Kubernetes is kind of the terminology for user ID, password, kind of confidential information. Yep, and how Kubernetes and OpenShift does that is you get a name that you can then associate with other parts of the environment. So we have a secret in our secrets database with the name of ATG vCenter here that has the user password credentials to talk to this one. Okay. So once those are done, you create a plan, and there's a few existing plans from previous migrations that have been done in this system. The plan name here for our demo today. We'll just type in a unique name. For source provider, we're going to pull virtual machines from the VMware cluster. And for target provider, we're going to migrate them to ourself or the host, which is our, and then the namespace is down here.
I think you've got another live search bar there too, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which namespace we
I think it's that one.
I believe it was the VMs one again. Okay, so then we do next. And there's by clusters or by folders. For the demo, we're going to do the by folders choice here and drill in and select the Fusion VMs. And you can see there's warnings here. The warnings are whether or not they can support live migration. So if we do the twisty, it'll give us more details about what's generating those. So one of the warnings is that there's HA turned on the source cluster. And another warning is that UEFI is set with secure boot.
Which RHEL 9 requires, right? So that's one of the things you can't really turn off.
Yeah, so if you're doing RHEL 9, you'll be doing a non-live migration right now. The Red Hat team's working in development on relaxing some of these restrictions over time because we know that there's a lot of interest in being able to migrate more and more use cases live, right? It just makes it a little easier for change management for our customers. So then,
well, this is also a great feature for even managing multiple environments, like in a pre-production or a DevOps kind of CI/CD world, right? So great way to do that.
Yeah, and if you have workloads in different data centers, you could use this tool to migrate virtual machines from data center A to B right? All those kinds of use cases can take advantage of this. And as you can see here, it's roughly the same amount of work in terms of UI navigation to do one virtual machine versus all of them in an environment, right? So we'll select all three in here. Then network mapping is what network does it look like in the source environment? So VM network 2, if you're familiar with VMware, you'd recognize that as kind of a default name, VM network 1 and 2 on your source cluster. And that's the same thing. If you logged into the Virtual Center UI, you would see it under that same name. So that's handy. And then you can check from all the different networks defined in this target network. Because this is the test system, there is a lot of networks in the list here, but by default, it would just be the pod network that you would see. And then step to the next part of the wizard. This is where we take the virtual disks and kind of that VMFS on the source side, where we're grabbing our items from, and then the storage class, IBM Spectrum Fusion. And as Randy mentioned earlier, this IBM Spectrum Fusion is a popular choice for the target namespace because it's an RWX technology. And by choosing that as the target storage class, now all of the worker nodes in my cluster are available as targets for this migration.
Although we got to rename it to get rid of Spectrum, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Fair enough. Yes. Then the migration type, we're going to do a cold migration today. Warm migration, if we met all of those prereqs, would stream the memory contents across and then do a final cutover, similar to that vMotion technology from VMware, right? And because automation is important, in some cases you might have different device drivers on the target system that you're migrating to. So if you're coming from an environment that has its own proprietary device drivers to an environment that needs different device drivers, you can do pre and post hooks to take care of some of those customizations. And again, that's something that you would figure out an operating system type at a time, not per migration, right? And there's different ways to put those hooks in, either running scripts to do that before or after the migration, or
you can even ingest like a local Ansible playbook or something, right?
Exactly. So one of the options is to just pick a file of an Ansible playbook, and you can choose to have it run before or after the migration completes. Or if that makes sense, you can even have a custom container image that you've built that runs once as the container inside of the context of the storage and the virtual machine. Okay. We're not going to do any hooks for this demo today, but then you get a nice summary of what your plan is. When you do finish, this plan that we just created gets immediately added into the list of plans. And then based on change management windows for you and your business, you could schedule this to start or just interactively click on start when you're ready for the migration to kick off. Okay, so now that I hit start and confirmed, it's going to look at all three of these VMs, and it's going to step through all of the inventory collection on the source side, looking for all of the disks and the source and target image type if it needs to do a V2V conversion.
The visualization here is really good too. It's really intuitive.
Yep. And by having the dynamic time updated when you drill into the twisty, you can make sure that everything's moving along.
Yeah.
And
very cool.
This is really, kind of speed of light and network bandwidth is really going to define how long this takes. Like,
sure.
The further apart your source and target are, the longer this will take. But there's really no hard limits. We've got customers and demos that have kind of streamed these across the globe, and that works fine as long as you have enough patience for the data to get from A to B.
Right? Well, start it and go to lunch. Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And so then you can see the live status here. If we were to go back to looking at the other virtual machines and navigating there, all of this is still asynchronously sitting here ready for us to drill back in and look at the progress. Right. So all of that is available through the UI here, and under the covers, through the magic of Kubernetes, it's going to just keep chugging away on this process till it's done.
Very
Even if
cool.
nodes reboot in the middle of this happening, it keeps track of the state of everything that's going on. And
Yeah,
keeps
and
pushing.
you know, again, just reiterate, we're obviously kind of talking through this for demo purposes and explaining, you know, the workflow, but it's actually very simple. I mean, if we were just sitting down to go through these scenarios of these vignettes, I mean, it's probably 10 minutes in total, right? So it's a really efficient environment.
Very much so. Yeah. And you're not redefining networking every time you do a migration. It's
Right.
some of these tasks are something you do once per cluster, not once per virtual machine, right? So
Cool.
it really does scale to pretty good productivity.
Thank you. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please like and subscribe.